Plunging more than 200 meters into the earth, this is the deepest river on the planet. It's a hydraulic monster, dumping an astonishing 41,000 cubic meters of water into the ocean every single second. This map shows the true footprint of the Congo Basin. The water catchment area is so massive that you can drop the entire landmasses of France, Germany, and Spain comfortably inside its borders. Starting in the high plateaus of Zambia, the river carves a massive semicircle across the continent, following a path that intersects the equator not once but twice. This geographical quirk gives the Congo a perpetual engine. When the northern half of the basin enters its dry season, the southern tributaries are getting pounded by heavy rain. 6 months later, the cycle flips. Because one side is always raining, the central river maintains a relentlessly stable, thick volume of water year-round. Yet this immense geological engine creates a glaring contradiction. It feeds some of the richest biodiversity and mineral deposits on Earth, but the human populations living along its banks endure staggering poverty and decades of armed conflict. To truly understand the Congo, you have to look at how this extreme geography dictates destiny. It is a land where the terrain itself acts as a miraculous biological blessing and a devastating historical curse. Down at those record-breaking depths of 200 meters, the water pressure and violent currents make it impossible for sunlight to penetrate. The riverbed is trapped in permanent, pitch-black darkness. That darkness turned the river into a closed evolutionary laboratory. Of the 700 fish species that evolved here, some have entirely lost their eyes. Instead, they navigate the crushing, turbulent depths by feeling vibrations through specialized sensors on their bodies. Above the surface, the river's sheer width and violent rapids created a completely impassable wall for land animals. This physical barrier was so absolute that it permanently split the evolutionary tree of the great apes. Because they could never cross the water, the apes that stayed on the northern bank evolved into chimpanzees. Meanwhile, the apes pictured here, trapped entirely on the southern bank, evolved into a completely separate species, the bonobo. The dense, impenetrable jungles surrounding the river also acted as a vault. It hid massive, strange mammals, like this creature, the okapi, which looks like a cross between a zebra and a giraffe, keeping them completely hidden from the outside world until the 20th century. By throwing up impassable physical walls of water and dense forest, the Congo isolated its wildlife from the rest of the planet and incubated a completely unique biological wonderland. As the river pushes toward its lower half, it runs into ancient geological barriers. Millions of years ago, shifting tectonic plates forced the water into a massive semicircular detour, creating severe drops in elevation. This elevation drop forms the Boyoma Falls and the Livingstone Rapids, a 400-kilometer stretch of violent churning water. For centuries, this unnavigable labyrinth acted as a natural fortress wall, preventing European ships from reaching the interior. That fortress wall held until the late 19th century. That's when European explorers, most notably this man, Henry Morton Stanley, finally charted an overland path past the rapids, exposing the basin's interior. With the interior exposed, King Leopold II of Belgium used international diplomacy at the 1885 Berlin Conference to claim this newly opened territory as his own private personal property, bypassing standard national colonialism to rule the region as a personal business. What followed was a regime of industrialized terror. Locals were subjected to forced labor to extract ivory and meet extreme rubber production quotas. If villages missed these quotas, private militias burned their homes, mutilated workers by cutting off their hands, and killed millions of people. When the Congo finally gained independence in 1960, the trauma and forced lack of education under Belgian rule left a massive political vacuum. The nation immediately fractured, leading to the assassination of its very first prime minister, Patrice Lumumba, shown here. That instability paved the way for General Mobutu Sese Seko to seize power. His heavily corrupt, decades-long dictatorship systematically hollowed out the country's wealth, ultimately boiling over in the 1990s into a brutal, multi-nation conflict known as the African World War. The sheer impenetrability that protected the Congo's wealth for millennia ended up being its undoing. Because it was so hard to access, the eventual rush to extract its resources was entirely lawless, sudden, and catastrophic. Today, a new global scramble is underway. The ground beneath the Congo Basin holds the world's most critical reserves of cobalt, copper, and tantalum. If you drive an electric vehicle or own a smartphone, the components that make it work likely originated in this soil. Above ground, the river itself is an untapped powerhouse. Upgrading hydroelectric facilities like the Inga Dam could theoretically generate enough electricity to power the entirety of sub-Saharan Africa. It is a staggering contradiction. The local population is standing on top of a $1 trillion mineral deposit and living next to a limitless power source. Yet political instability and foreign exploitation keep millions locked in extreme poverty. And the stakes go far beyond the local economy. The surrounding Congo rainforest acts as the Earth's second lung. It is one of the largest natural carbon sinks on the planet, absorbing massive amounts of CO2 to keep global temperatures in check. But unregulated mining, illegal logging, and rapid infrastructure expansion are tearing that forest apart. This destruction eliminates critical habitats for local wildlife and dismantles a vital natural defense system against global climate change. Eventually, this massive current hits the Atlantic Ocean, but it doesn't stop. The flow of fresh water and sediment is so incredibly powerful that it continues carving a Grand Canyon-sized trench deep into the ocean floor, hundreds of kilometers off the coast. The Congo River is a relentless, unstoppable force of nature that will easily outlast human greed. But whether this basin ultimately serves as a global savior or a tragic cautionary tale depends entirely on one thing: whether humanity can finally learn to extract its immense wealth with justice and sustainability.